Ladies and gentlemen, shall we step foot inside the halls of valor? Raise your shields high, Asgardians, as we step into such a happy, cheery looking place. My God, isn't it shiny? It's so shiny. It's so shiny. So this is the warrior class hall, in kind of. It's the same place, but slightly reworked. Some various picked out environments that are the exact same, but it extends further than that. And where you'll be fighting these gods and ultimately challenging Odin himself by Odin's beard. And it's visually, it's easily the most impressive dungeon. It is. Darkheart Thicket is very invested and very aesthetically pleasing, but it's very busy. It is really busy, and it's very dense, and you feel like you're in some sort of Predator-style jungle. Whereas the Halls of Valor is open, it's clean, it looks angel-like, it looks angelic, and that gives it a great and unique feel that I haven't seen in a dungeon in a really long time. I can't even think of somewhere that really took it this far with its theme, and it pays off in spades. It's wonderful. It's gorgeous. We're going to visit a nice foresty area with a nice leafy glade where we can sit down with the ladies and we can have just ourselves a nice little picnic with some doggies and some elephants and some moose and some cats and dogs running gleefully and some dragons alongside it. Yeah, the Halls of Valor looks gorgeous. Looks gorgeous. For me, though, that's where the fun ended, unfortunately. These are some of the weakest bosses in all of Legion. In my opinion, super weak. What they've gone with in Halls of Valor is what you'll see is really striking, really gorgeous encounters. Like the fights themselves have mechanics that make them even more gorgeous, which is hard to believe, and look spectacular. But there's not much going on, unfortunately. There's not much actually happening when you get it down to the gameplay side of things. And once that luster, because I've run this dungeon so many times now, like at least 10 plus. Once that luster wears off, there's not a lot going on here. And in fact, some of it is a little bit too frustrating. So let's get into what's going on there. What's going on with the trash? Not a great deal. Most things that the trash do are easily counterable with a stun. And I don't like that. I don't like it where stuns kind of just nullify everything. There's no real danger. You can ninja pull in here, which is rare. In the Legion dungeons, I probably mentioned this in a couple of other videos if you've watched them, is the trash has been really well designed so that the packs are varied, like from pack to pack. They're very different in terms of the mobs that are in them. So that if you combine the two and mix them together almost like paint, you'll get a completely different encounter, which is very different to deal with. The Halls of Valor isn't that way. The trash is essentially all the same mobs throughout the dungeon for the most part. There's not a lot of it though, thankfully. There's basically a great banquet hall where most of the trash is located. And once you clear that out, you're fine. And it's almost a surprise. I actually felt myself going, ooh, a different trash mob. And then I thought, wow, I haven't thought that at all in Legion. As you move towards the boss on the left, there's a different looking trash mob in there. And I was like, ooh, he's different. And I was like, shit, everything in here is the fucking same all the way through it. That's why I'm thinking that, which I hadn't felt in any of the other Legion dungeons, because the trash is really varied. Blackrock Hold has probably 13 or 14 different trash mobs in there, as much as there's quite a lot of it, but they're all very varied and all do different things. Same with Darkheart Thicket, same with the Moor of Souls, same with Neltharian's Lair, same with the Vault of Wardens. It all varies up really nicely. The Halls of Valor, not so much. Very samey and not overly difficult to deal with. Very, very easily countered. Some purging to be done. This is the first time I've really seen purging in Legion. When I spotted it, I was like, ooh, I could do something with that. I think I was playing a priest or a shaman. I was like, ooh, something I could do that's a bit cool. I was on my mage, actually. I spell stole it, which was very, very awesome. So, yeah, trash not that interesting. Luckily, there's, as I said, there's not a lot of it. It's basically one room, and then you've got a little bit of trash which suits the bosses. So let's talk about the bosses then. So the right hand is a really curious boss. You either go, you can go right or you can go left first, and then you meet back in the middle. Very much like the Jade Temple in Mists of Pandaria in terms of its design. So if I say Jade Temple to you, so you've got a boss on the right and a boss on the left, and you meet in the middle, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's almost a very similar layout. Now I think about it, it's almost the exact same layout with a one slight extension. Either way, so our boss on the right is a big bad wolf. The big bad wolf. Now, for some curious reason, and this already drives every group crazy who goes into this dungeon, he has one final resting place where he'll do the final battle, but he has two places he can spawn at the beginning. And the mechanic for checking where he is either mouse over him if you have a good PC, because you can see him, right? Which then leads to arguments for people on weaker PCs to go, no, he's not. he was here. Because they've done the dungeon before and he spawned in the other location. And you're like, no, he's right there. I'm selecting him. He's like, no, he's not. He's over here. This has happened multiple fucking times when I've done this dungeon. But the real way you're supposed to do it is actually look at the tracks on the floor. So as you enter this sort of leafy area through a teleporter, you will have wolf tracks along the floor that will lead either to the left or the right of the area. And that's where he's going to be spawning first. Why? It doesn't add anything to the dungeon. I'm really curious as to why this decision was made, whether it was supposed to be something that people thought was cool, when you can quite literally just see him from the start. If your PC is good enough, you can just mouse over him as soon as you come down the hill. And I don't get it. I don't get why this mechanic exists. I'm not saying it's hard. I'm not saying it's like... it's difficult to work out where he is, because I've clearly told you it's not. It's just strange, because it doesn't add anything. It's like a mechanic for the sake of having another mechanic. Well, this guy could spawn in either place. It's like, why? I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense to me. But either way, once you fight him, you'll fight him twice, like I've just explained. You'll fight him in his first spawn point, and then he'll be like, fuck you, and run off to his eventual final spot, which is always in the same place. And the trash here, these wolves, are really fucking annoying because they hit super hard. I'm dreading what these things are in Legion, in the challenge mode system, because right now they fucking wreck. You get 4 of these wolves on you, and you're the tank. Fuck me, it hurts so badly. And not really predictive either. They have like a chargy lunge thing that is just, it's all mistimed and it just fucking blows. And then you'll eventually meet the boss. And he does a mechanic that you've probably seen many times, which is you'll charge everybody and put a bleed on them. So obviously, you know, in the challenge mode, that bleed's going to really hurt, and that'll be really fun, won't it? Give me a break. This boss fucking blows, and this is one of the reasons, like, Halls of Valor for me is really down in mechanics, although it looks gorgeous, right? I love being inside there. It looks ace. But the boss is like, ugh, come on. Can we have some of the Violet Hole bosses in here, maybe? Because they're really cool. This guy's not cool. He always fixates someone, and they have to run away. Isn't that fun? No. No, it's not really. Any decent player is just going to be like, oh, great, I got picked. This is going to fuck my DPS. It's like Gorfiend, when you do the pull and, like, you're... whoever's going to get picked, right? I'm sure most, at least Mythic guilds will probably understand this. It's like a big joke, whoever gets picked first to go into the stomach. And you're like, oh, come on. Boo. Boo to here. So, in heroic guilds, I should say. You'll know what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's one of those. It's like, it's a mundane boss. The mechanics are really obvious. Just heal it and DPS it, and he does nothing of interest. What the challenge will be, I think, is just increasing damage. Unless they give him something really interesting to do, like, but I can't see it. It's either going to be spawn wolves, yeah, which is like, oh, come on. Or it's just going to be like, this bleed really hurts now, which is, you know, it's a mechanic, sure, but it's not interesting, is it? You know what I mean? Just bleeding all the time. It's like, you're gradually going to die, better DPS it down. Yeah, okay. So that then moves us to the other side of the banquet hall then. And... this is one of those bosses that really suffers in normal mode. So what you'll have is you get the 2 halves of the boss split into 2 individual people. You kill them, and then they sort of give their power to one bro who has both of their powers. And the idea here is actually okay. It's not hard. Is that these 2 guys that you fight before they give their power up actually have 2 solid death spots. You can't move them. They die in specific places. And the boss will gain power the closer he is to one of them. So if you move towards, say, the light mob, he will gain light power, and his light spells will do more damage. And then you're supposed to move the boss so he resets his light one, so you move it out of range of that one. But of course, moving out of range of the light one means that he starts gaining the dark power, and then his dark spells do more damage. And the idea is you move backwards and forwards. Yeah, it's very, very easy. Resetting the stacks so they don't get too high, blah, 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 blah. In normal mode, you just keep him in one phase and just burn him down, because the debuffs cap out. So the first suggestion is, even in normal mode, Blizz, these debuffs should keep stacking. There is no reason that it should be that stupid in normal mode. I get that if a challenge mode, that might happen, or it'll be far more devastating to have him staying in one phase in the challenge mode, and hopefully someone doesn't find a way to just fucking cheese that. I would really hate that to happen, because the mechanic itself should be done, and the boss gives you plenty of opportunity for the tank to shift safely and allow that to happen. The mechanics actually sort of promote that, because that's the way it's supposed to work. But even in the normal mode, the buffs should keep stacking. I believe they cap out at 10. And even a reasonable healer can cope with 10 stacks in the normal mode. I just think they should just keep going. So there's no reason to put a limit on how many buffs this guy can get if you're going to keep him stood over that side. It would make the fight more interesting than it is now, which is keeping in his easiest phase and just burning him down. But it's normal mode, so I don't care that much. I know that in challenge mode you probably won't be able to do that, or somebody will eventually find a way to do it, which would be sad, but easily fixed by just making it so so it just keeps growing in power. There's no reason for it not to do that. So after you've done that, you'll move up to the last bosses, which is a gauntlet. And it's interesting. It's very much like Anchorage 40. If some of you remember the initial Anubisath trash, which is that there's 4 of them. Each of them has a buff. And when you kill one, the other 3 gain the buff of that one. You'll kill another one. The remaining 2 now have 3 buffs each. And you kill the last one. You kill the second to last one, and the final Anubisath has all 4 buffs and becomes really dangerous. It's the same system, and you do get to pick and choose the first 2 to give the buffs to, and some of them are far more deadly than others. It was a little buggy because the active mitigation is supposed to work on certain mechanics, and it wasn't, which was a big pain in the ass and created some healer stress for certain tanks where their active mitigation wasn't working. But that's a bug that's going to be easily fixed. I like picking and choosing which system you like to go. I think that's a very cool idea. You put that in the player's hands, and that allows for some extra choosability with your group setup. Some abilities will be better for your group than they are for others. And it might be like, oh, we have X tank here, so it's better if he has these debuffs to deal with. Or we have a lot of range, so we can deal with this mechanic much easier, like spawning of ads and stuff. That's not going to cause us any problems compared to as it was if we had lots of things spawning ads all the time. I think that's cool. I love this idea, and it gets gradually more difficult as a boss should be, and you prepare for it and you get good warning. You can even stall it if you have to by keeping the mob alive, because the next mobs, once you start the encounter and kill the first 2, so the last 2 have the buffs of the 2 that are dead, those 2 instantly start, so you could delay that on purpose and get ready for that to happen, which I love that mechanic as well, because it means it puts control back into players' hands. Which moves us to Odin. No, there's another boss, isn't there? Yeah, so there's another boss. Yeah, there is. The boss that uses the Aegis of Agramar. The Aegis of Agramar. Which is, again, one of the weaker bosses, unfortunately. Although it looks really good. Well, I don't want to walk away from it thinking this dungeon sucks. It doesn't. It looks fantastic. It's just the mechanics in the normal mode are really kind of weak sauce. Even for normal mode, right? Normal mode is supposed to be easy. This is, like, easy and boring. And the Aegis of Agramar is kind of that. There's you pick up a shield, usually give it to the tank, because the shield protects you from one of the boss's abilities. So all that happens is, when that ability goes off, tank presses his button, and then you can't fail. If you do that mechanic, you're not going to fail, and you kill the boss. It's got to do far more in challenge modes, but what can it do is unknown to me as yet. I've got some ideas, but they're kind of wild because the base mechanics of the boss don't invite themselves or lend themselves any clear trickery that could be up their sleeves for challenge mode. So I'll have to wait and see on that one what kind of cool stuff they've got in for it. Let's then move on to the last boss, which is Odin. Odin should have been an epic encounter, and they really, really tried, because visually, again, as with everything in the Halls of Valor, it looks awesome. You turn into a fucking big Valkyr. You know what I mean? There's huge runes on the floor. You have to do some puzzles, and I can see that we'll get very much a Paragon of the Galaxy situation in here, where in the final, probably the more difficult versions, there'll be some sort of mixing and matching of this, because these runes give you huge buffs, because you can't kill him, because he's fucking Odin, right? He's fucking Odin, so you're DPSing him, and you're not, like, doing anything to his health. Then you use this Valkyr system in order to become far more powerful, and then go ham on him while you do these rune combinations. And I'm sure that's where it'll go, is you'll have to get multiple runes in order to generate the buff and then make best advantage of that. Unfortunately, if you can avoid that, or if you could do that, let me say this, his mechanics boil down to a big AoE and avoiding spears. That's it. So when you see a big AoE on the floor, which we've seen in WoD all over the place, everything from Twin Ogron had this big circular AoE, don't stand in it. If you could deal with that, there's nothing happening in this boss. Nothing at all, which is a real shame. I was hoping that this guy would have been visually spectacular, which he is, and mechanically spectacular, doing something really cool, rather than mechanic being really cool to look at. It's nice to become a Valkyr, but ultimately it's like a damage buff and nothing much else, which was a bit of a shame, and I was just hoping for a little bit more, especially considering how good some of the other dungeons are. But there you go, that's my Halls of Valor review. That's what I would like to see in there, and some of those bosses, I don't know what they're going to do with them. There's some definite suggestions I put forth there. I just hope they expand a little bit more on it and have some tricks up their sleeves. Alright guys, bye bye.